Top 10 Deadliest Prison Gangs Running U.S. Prisons. Every day, more than 1 million people wake up inside American prisons. Behind those walls, correctional officers enforce official rules. But in many facilities, another system of power exists. It isn't written in prison handbooks. It isn't announced over loudspeakers. And it often determines who eats, who works, who is protected, and who becomes a target. Across decades, prison gangs have evolved into highly organized criminal networks. Some began inside state prisons before expanding onto the streets. Others were created outside prison and later established powerful prison chapters. Their influence varies greatly from one institution to another. No single gang controls every American prison. Authority differs by state, security level, housing unit, and even individual cell block. Still, law enforcement agencies, correctional investigators, prosecutors, and academic researchers consistently identify certain prison gangs as among the most violent and influential in the United States. Tonight we're counting down 10 of them. Not by mythology, not by movies, but through documented history, criminal investigations, prison intelligence, and publicly available evidence. Some names are infamous. Others operate almost entirely in the shadows. And as we move toward number 1, the organizations become increasingly violent, disciplined, and deeply embedded inside correctional systems. Before we begin, if you enjoy factual prison and true crime documentaries, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss future episodes. And leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. It's always fascinating to see viewers joining us from around the world. Now, let's begin. Number 10. Nazi Low Riders, NLR. The first gang on this list is one that is often misunderstood. Despite the name, the Nazi Low Riders, or NLR, did not begin as one of America's largest prison gangs. Instead, investigators describe it as a prison-based white supremacist gang that grew rapidly inside California's correctional system during the late 1970s and early 1980s. Its rise reflected changing prison dynamics. At the time, larger prison gangs already controlled significant portions of inmate populations. Smaller groups of younger white inmates increasingly organized for protection, criminal opportunities, and racial solidarity. From that environment, the Nazi Low Riders emerged. Unlike some prison gangs with centralized national leadership, the NLR has historically been more decentralized. Different prison yards have sometimes operated with varying leadership structures. That decentralization has occasionally made the organization more difficult for investigators to monitor. Law enforcement agencies, including the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation and federal prosecutors, have linked documented NLR members to crimes including drug trafficking, assaults, weapons offenses, extortion, murder conspiracies, organized violence inside correctional facilities. Outside prison, investigators have also connected members to methamphetamine distribution and firearms offenses. Federal indictments over the years have described networks that continued operating both inside prisons and on the streets. One major challenge for correctional officials has been distinguishing between core members and inmates merely associating with the gang. Membership often shifts over time. Some inmates leave. Others move into leadership. Others cooperate with authorities. As with many prison gangs, exact membership numbers remain unknown. Different estimates have appeared over the years, but no publicly verified figure accurately reflects current nationwide membership. What is well documented is that the NLR has repeatedly appeared in criminal investigations involving organized prison violence across California and neighboring states. Despite being number 10 on today's list, correctional intelligence units continue to monitor the group because even relatively small prison gangs can exert significant influence within specific housing units or institutions. And the organizations still ahead have histories that extend far beyond a single state's prison system. Number 9. Texas Syndicate, TS. At first glance, the Texas Syndicate might appear to be just another regional prison gang. But investigators say its influence has expanded far beyond the walls where it was born. The Texas Syndicate, commonly known as TS, was established in the 1970s by Hispanic inmates within the Texas prison system. According to correctional intelligence and federal court records, the group originally formed partly as a response to violence and competition from other prison gangs operating at the time. Unlike loosely organized inmate groups, the Texas Syndicate developed a structured hierarchy with strict expectations for its members. Membership has historically required loyalty, discipline, and participation in gang activities. Violating internal rules has, according to numerous criminal prosecutions, sometimes resulted in severe punishment from fellow members. As the organization expanded, it became active not only inside correctional institutions but also in communities across Texas and several other states. Federal investigators have connected documented members to criminal activities including drug trafficking, contract assaults, robbery, weapons offenses, money laundering, racketeering, homicides. The exact scope of the organization's operations varies from case to case, and not every member has been involved in every category of crime. However, multiple federal indictments have described coordinated criminal enterprises directed by gang leadership. One characteristic that distinguishes the Texas Syndicate is its ability to maintain communication between incarcerated members and associates outside prison. Law enforcement investigations have documented instances in which imprisoned leaders allegedly continued issuing orders through coded messages, contraband cell phones, visitors, or intermediaries. Correctional officials have devoted significant resources to disrupting those communication channels. In recent decades, federal prosecutions have resulted in lengthy prison sentences for numerous alleged leaders. Even so, investigators note that prison gangs often regenerate leadership over time, making long-term disruption difficult. The Texas Syndicate remains one of the prison gangs most frequently referenced in intelligence reports concerning organized criminal activity originating within correctional facilities. But the organizations ranked above it have demonstrated even broader influence, or significantly greater levels of documented violence. Number 8. Black Guerrilla Family (BGF). Few prison gangs have a history as politically complex as the Black Guerrilla Family. Known simply as the BGF, the organization was founded in California's prison system during the 1960s. Its founder, George Jackson, became one of the most influential and controversial figures in American prison history. Jackson's writings emphasized revolutionary political ideology, racial justice, and resistance to perceived oppression within the prison system. Following his death in 1971 during an attempted escape at California's San Quentin prison, the organization continued to evolve. Over time, correctional officials and federal investigators increasingly described the Black Guerrilla Family as a prison gang involved in organized criminal activity. Modern law enforcement assessments differ significantly from the group's original ideological messaging. According to federal prosecutors, documented BGF members have been linked in various criminal cases to murder, drug trafficking, extortion, assaults, weapons violations, racketeering. Several major federal investigations have alleged that certain BGF factions directed criminal enterprises from inside prison while coordinating activities on the outside. One notable case involved a sweeping federal prosecution in Maryland, where authorities alleged that imprisoned gang leaders ordered violent crimes beyond prison walls. Court proceedings described an organization capable of maintaining discipline through strict internal rules and severe consequences for members who violated them. Researchers caution, however, that the Black Guerrilla Family has never functioned as a completely unified national organization. Instead, different factions have emerged across states, each with varying leadership structures and operational priorities. This makes assessing the gang's total membership difficult. Public estimates vary widely, and no definitive nationwide figure exists. Correctional agencies continue monitoring BGF activity because even relatively small, organized groups can exercise significant influence within individual institutions. The Black Guerrilla Family's history also illustrates how prison organizations can change dramatically over time, from ideological beginnings to criminal enterprises identified in numerous federal prosecutions. And yet, the gangs still ahead on this list have built reputations for even greater organizational reach, international connections, or sustained levels of documented prison violence. Number 7. Aryan Brotherhood of Texas, ABT. Despite its name, the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas is not the same organization as the Aryan Brotherhood prison gang that appears later on this list. The two groups have distinct origins, separate leadership structures, and have often operated independently. The Aryan Brotherhood of Texas, commonly known as ABT, emerged in the mid-1980s within the Texas prison system. According to law enforcement agencies, it began as a white prison gang but gradually expanded its operations beyond correctional facilities. Today, federal and state investigators describe the ABT as a prison-based criminal organization with members operating both inside prisons and in communities throughout Texas and neighboring states. Unlike smaller prison gangs confined primarily to individual institutions, the ABT has been linked to organized criminal enterprises extending far beyond prison walls. Federal indictments and state investigations have connected documented members to crimes including drug trafficking, aggravated assault, kidnapping, extortion, firearms violations, murder, racketeering. Investigators have also documented cases involving methamphetamine distribution networks allegedly coordinated by ABT members. Several large law enforcement operations over the past 2 decades have resulted in dozens of arrests targeting alleged gang leaders and associates. Court records describe an organization that maintains strict internal discipline and expects members to follow orders issued by leadership. Failure to comply has, according to prosecutors, sometimes resulted in violent retaliation. Correctional officials have also noted that communication between incarcerated members and associates outside prison has remained a persistent challenge. Contraband cell phones, coded correspondence, and outside intermediaries have all appeared in documented criminal investigations. Like many prison gangs, exact membership numbers remain uncertain. Public estimates vary considerably, and no official nationwide count exists. What is clear from federal prosecutions is that the organization has remained active despite repeated enforcement efforts. Every major arrest appears to create opportunities for new leaders to emerge. That ability to regenerate leadership has made the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas one of the prison gangs most closely monitored by correctional intelligence units. But even this organization's reach is overshadowed by the nationally recognized gangs that follow. Number 6. Mexican Mafia, LAIM. Few prison gangs have influenced the American correctional system as profoundly as the Mexican Mafia. Known by investigators as LAIM, Spanish for the letter M, the organization was founded in 1957 at the former Dual Vocational Institution in California. Originally established by Hispanic inmates seeking protection and influence within the prison system, the gang evolved into one of the most powerful criminal organizations ever to emerge from a correctional facility. Unlike many prison gangs that remain largely confined behind bars, the Mexican Mafia developed a network extending into neighborhoods across Southern California. Federal authorities have repeatedly described LAIM as exercising influence over numerous Hispanic street gangs, particularly through systems of taxation and control. Investigators allege that some street gangs have been required to pay money or provide assistance in exchange for protection or recognition. However, the extent of that influence can vary significantly depending on location and local leadership. Court documents and law enforcement investigations have connected documented Mexican Mafia members to crimes including murder, drug trafficking, extortion, witness intimidation, money laundering, racketeering, ordered assaults both inside and outside prison. One defining characteristic of LAIM has been its ability to maintain authority despite relatively small membership. Researchers and investigators have long noted that the gang's influence has often exceeded its actual size. Membership is believed to be highly selective. Prospective members historically had to demonstrate loyalty and commitment over extended periods. Law enforcement agencies have also documented strict internal rules. Violating those rules has, according to multiple criminal prosecutions, sometimes carried deadly consequences. Over the decades, federal authorities have brought numerous racketeer-influenced and corrupt organizations act, better known as RICO, cases against alleged leaders. Those prosecutions have resulted in lengthy prison sentences, including life imprisonment. Yet prosecutors have consistently argued that removing individual leaders has not eliminated the organization. Instead, leadership structures have adapted as new members assumed greater responsibility. The Mexican Mafia's reputation has also shaped prison politics throughout California. Correctional officials have long viewed rivalries involving LAIM as significant factors influencing violence within certain institutions. Even today, correctional intelligence units continue monitoring suspected members because of the gang's documented ability to coordinate criminal activity across prison and community settings. And as powerful as the Mexican Mafia has become, the 5 organizations remaining on this countdown have histories marked by even broader influence, greater geographic reach, or exceptional levels of documented prison violence. Number 5. Nuestra Familia. If the Mexican Mafia became the dominant force among many Hispanic inmates from Southern California, another organization rose to challenge that influence. That group was Nuestra Familia. Founded in 1968 at the Soledad State Prison, Nuestra Familia emerged amid growing tensions between Northern and Southern California Hispanic inmates. What began as a regional prison organization eventually developed into one of the most structured prison gangs in the United States. According to federal investigators, Nuestra Familia established a highly organized chain of command, written rules, and a formal leadership structure. Its influence eventually spread from prisons into communities throughout Northern California. Unlike many prison gangs, Nuestra Familia has been documented using written constitutions and internal codes that outline expectations for members. Federal court records describe a hierarchy in which leaders allegedly issued directives through trusted intermediaries, allowing operations to continue even while senior members remained incarcerated. Law enforcement investigations have linked documented members to crimes including drug trafficking, extortion, assault, murder, witness intimidation, racketeering, weapons offenses. One of the largest investigations into the organization came through the FBI's long-running Operation Black Widow. The investigation resulted in numerous federal indictments alleging that imprisoned leaders continued directing criminal enterprises from within California prisons. Court documents described sophisticated communication methods involving coded messages, attorneys acting as legal messengers, visitors, and in some cases contraband cell phones. Prosecutors argued that the organization maintained discipline through a combination of loyalty, hierarchy, and fear of internal punishment. Researchers caution that not every criminal act committed by individuals identifying with Nuestra Familia is directed by the organization's leadership. Like many prison gangs, local factions can vary considerably in structure and activity. Nevertheless, correctional intelligence agencies continue to classify Nuestra Familia as one of America's most influential prison gangs because of its documented organizational discipline and its long history inside California's correctional system. Its decades-long rivalry with the Mexican Mafia has also been identified by correctional officials as a major source of violence within some institutions. But the organizations still ahead have become even more deeply entrenched in America's prison systems, or have built international reputations extending far beyond U.S. borders. Number 4. Barrio Azteca. Unlike many prison gangs that remained largely confined within a single state's correctional system, Barrio Azteca developed across both prisons and international borders. The organization was founded during the mid-1980s within the Texas prison system. According to federal investigators, it was initially formed by inmates from the El Paso area seeking protection while incarcerated. Over time, authorities say the group expanded beyond prison walls and established a significant presence in border communities. Federal law enforcement has repeatedly described Barrio Azteca as both a prison gang and a transnational criminal organization. Numerous investigations have alleged that members operated on both sides of the U.S.-Mexico border. Court records have connected documented members to criminal activities including drug trafficking, human smuggling, extortion, kidnapping, firearms offenses, murder, organized racketeering. One of the most widely reported federal cases involving Barrio Azteca followed the 2010 killings of 3 individuals connected to the U.S. consulate in Ciudad Juarez. Federal prosecutors alleged that gang members participated in the attack as part of broader organized criminal activity. The case drew international attention and resulted in multiple convictions. Investigators have also documented the gang's alleged relationships with Mexican organized crime groups. The nature and extent of those relationships have varied over time and across different criminal cases. Law enforcement agencies caution against viewing those alliances as permanent or uniform. Instead, they often shift in response to changing criminal markets and local power struggles. Inside correctional institutions, Barrio Azteca has been associated with strict discipline, organized recruitment, and coordinated criminal activity. Federal indictments describe leadership structures designed to maintain authority over incarcerated members while facilitating communication with associates outside prison. Correctional intelligence officials continue monitoring Barrio Azteca because its documented activities have extended well beyond prison violence alone. Its combination of prison influence and cross-border criminal operations has made it one of the most closely watched prison-based organizations in North America. Yet 3 organizations remain. Each has earned a reputation that extends across multiple correctional systems, decades of criminal investigations, and some of the most violent chapters in modern American prison history. Number 3. Aryan Brotherhood, AB. For more than half a century, one prison gang has stood out for its reputation, secrecy, and documented involvement in extreme violence. That organization is the Aryan Brotherhood, often referred to simply as the AB. The Aryan Brotherhood was founded in the mid-1960s within California's prison system. According to correctional historians, it emerged during a period when racial divisions increasingly shaped prison politics. Originally formed by a relatively small group of white inmates, the gang gradually developed into one of the most feared prison organizations in the United States. Despite its comparatively small membership, federal investigators have long argued that the Aryan Brotherhood has exercised influence far beyond its size. Unlike larger gangs with thousands of documented members or associates, the AB has historically maintained highly selective recruitment standards. According to court records, prospective members were expected to demonstrate loyalty over extended periods and often had to commit serious acts of violence before gaining full membership. Researchers note that exact initiation practices have varied over time and are not fully documented in public records. Federal prosecutors have linked documented Aryan Brotherhood members to numerous crimes including murder, conspiracy to commit murder, drug trafficking, extortion, weapons offenses, racketeering, assaults on inmates and correctional staff. One of the most significant law enforcement actions against the organization occurred in the early 2000s, when the U.S. Department of Justice charged several alleged senior leaders under the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, commonly known as RICO. The indictment accused leaders of directing murders and criminal enterprises from inside prison while maintaining communication with members on the outside. Some defendants ultimately received life sentences or were convicted on multiple federal charges. Correctional officials have consistently described the Aryan Brotherhood as a gang that relies heavily on discipline and secrecy. Unlike some prison organizations with visible hierarchies, the AB has often operated through tightly controlled leadership circles. Law enforcement agencies have also noted that alliances within prisons can change depending on the institution. While racial identity has historically played a central role in the gang structure, prison politics are often shaped by local circumstances, and alliances may differ between facilities. The Aryan Brotherhood has also been the subject of extensive academic research examining prison violence and gang organization. Scholars frequently cite the group as an example of how relatively small organizations can exert disproportionate influence through intimidation and strategic violence. Today, correctional intelligence units across multiple states continue monitoring suspected members. Although repeated federal prosecutions have weakened parts of the organization, investigators say its influence has not completely disappeared. Yet despite its long history and notorious reputation, one gang has consistently been assessed by many correctional agencies as having even broader reach inside American prisons. Number 2. Sureños. Unlike most organizations on this list, the Sureños are not a single prison gang. Instead, they are a network of numerous Hispanic street gangs that identify with the number 13, representing the 13th letter of the alphabet, the letter M. According to law enforcement agencies, that symbolism reflects allegiance to the Mexican Mafia or LAIM, while operating primarily outside prison. Inside correctional facilities, however, Sureño inmates frequently organize under that broader identity. The result is one of the largest and most widespread gang networks connected to the American prison system. Because the Sureños consist of hundreds of individual neighborhood gangs, estimating total membership is extremely difficult. Public estimates vary widely, and no official nationwide count exists. Federal and state investigators generally agree, however, that Sureño-affiliated groups operate across numerous states, particularly in California and the Southwest, with additional documented presence elsewhere in the United States. Criminal investigations involving documented Sureño members have included allegations of drug trafficking, illegal firearms possession, assault, robbery, carjacking, extortion, murder, racketeering. Authorities emphasize that criminal activity differs significantly among individual Sureño gangs. Some groups are far more organized than others, and not every Sureño-affiliated gang participates in the same types of offenses. One factor contributing to the network's influence is its sheer size. Because many neighborhood gangs identify under the Sureño umbrella while incarcerated, the collective population can significantly affect prison dynamics in certain facilities. Correctional officials have reported that conflicts involving Sureño-affiliated inmates have contributed to riots, assaults, and prolonged periods of institutional lockdown in some prisons. The network has also been involved in long-running rivalries with Nuestra Familia and Norteño-affiliated groups, particularly within California's correctional system. Those rivalries have shaped prison security strategies for decades. Law enforcement agencies stress that prison gang relationships are highly localized. Not every institution experiences the same alliances or conflicts, and prison administrators continually adjust housing assignments and intelligence operations to reduce violence. Because the Sureños function as a decentralized network rather than a single organization, disrupting their activities presents unique challenges. Removing leaders from one neighborhood gang does not necessarily affect dozens of others operating under the same broader identity. This decentralized structure has helped the network remain influential across generations. Only one entry remains. It is not necessarily the largest gang, nor does it control every prison. But according to correctional experts, federal investigators, and decades of prison intelligence, it has become one of the most powerful prison gang networks ever established inside the United States. Number 1. The Bloods. At number 1 is a group whose presence extends far beyond any single prison system. Unlike organizations that originated exclusively behind bars, the Bloods began as a street gang in Los Angeles during the early 1970s. Over the following decades, numerous Bloods sets spread across the United States. As members entered local jails, state prisons, and federal correctional institutions, those affiliations followed them inside. Today, law enforcement agencies consistently identify the Bloods as one of the largest gang networks operating in American correctional facilities. It is important to understand one key fact. The Bloods are not a single centralized organization. Instead, they consist of hundreds of individual sets, each with its own leadership, history, and territory. Some cooperate with one another. Others have documented rivalries, even with other Blood sets. This decentralized structure makes the network especially difficult for correctional officials to manage. According to the FBI, state correctional agencies, and the National Gang Intelligence Center, documented Bloods members have been linked in criminal investigations to murder, attempted murder, drug trafficking, armed robbery, firearms offenses, assault, extortion, racketeering, witness intimidation. Not every Blood set participates in the same criminal activity. Many investigations involve only specific chapters or individual members. Authorities caution against assuming that every person claiming Blood's affiliation has equal status or involvement. Nevertheless, because of the network's size and geographic reach, correctional intelligence units devote substantial resources to monitoring Blood's activity. In many prison systems, investigators closely watch communications between incarcerated members and outside associates. Federal prosecutions have documented cases in which imprisoned gang members allegedly coordinated criminal enterprises using contraband cell phones, coded letters, visitors, and intermediaries. Large-scale law enforcement operations over the past 2 decades have resulted in hundreds of arrests targeting Bloods members across multiple states. These investigations have dismantled individual sets, disrupted trafficking operations, and led to lengthy prison sentences for documented gang leaders. Yet authorities acknowledge that the decentralized nature of the Bloods makes complete elimination extremely difficult. When one leadership group is dismantled, another often emerges elsewhere. Unlike prison gangs limited primarily to one correctional system, the Bloods maintain a nationwide presence that intersects with county jails, state prisons, federal institutions, and communities across the country. That combination of size, adaptability, and documented criminal activity is why many correctional agencies and law enforcement organizations continue to classify the Bloods among the most influential gang networks affecting American prisons today. At the same time, experts emphasize an important reality. No single gang controls all U.S. prisons. Every correctional system is different. Power structures vary by state, institution, housing unit, and even by individual prison yard. Correctional officers, intelligence units, and prison administrators continuously work to identify gang activity, separate rival groups, intercept contraband, and reduce violence. The struggle between prison authorities and organized inmate groups remains an ongoing challenge, one that evolves as gangs change tactics, recruit new members, and adapt to increasingly sophisticated security measures. The gangs featured in this countdown have earned their reputations through decades of documented criminal investigations, court cases, correctional intelligence reports, and academic research. But one fact bears repeating. No prison gang runs every prison in America. Influence depends on the institution, the security level, the state, and the effectiveness of correctional staff who work every day to maintain order under extraordinarily difficult conditions. Over the years, law enforcement agencies have dismantled major gang leadership, prosecuted large criminal enterprises under federal racketeering laws, and disrupted trafficking networks operating both inside and outside prison walls. Those efforts have reduced the influence of many organizations. At the same time, prison gangs continue to evolve. Some recruit through existing street gangs. Others rely on family connections, neighborhood ties, or long-standing prison alliances. New technology, including contraband cell phones and encrypted communications, has created additional challenges for investigators. Understanding these organizations is not about glorifying them. It is about understanding the realities correctional professionals face every day and the complex criminal networks that can develop behind prison walls. If you found this documentary informative, subscribe for more evidence-based prison and true crime documentaries. And if you haven't already, leave a comment letting us know where you're watching from and which prison topic you'd like us to cover next. Thanks for watching. Stay informed. We'll see you in the next documentary.